And the last thing that I would recommend you do, if you want to learn more about, I guess, hair, right, is to, let's call it, improve the sculpture that I have inside of ZBrush. I'm going to include it as OBJ, so you can open it in any application. This is a scan, actually. At least this was, I found it on Scan the World project, which is one of my favorite resources out there for just kind of studying and from masterpieces, right? Studying masterpieces, but also studying the way the masters created those masterpieces. But anyway, the thing about it is that sometimes on that website, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, because everything is done very professionally with quite a bit of responsibility behind the whole project. Sometimes you will find scans that are not really scans. So this one is probably was a scan. Maybe the base for that was actually a scan data, right? But maybe it was so raw and so kind of nasty and just poor quality than that the person, or maybe somebody else, but the person who took the scan went in and decided to kind of improve the quality of the scan. But by doing that, they've also destroyed the actual sculpture. So be very careful about that if you're going to download any 3D scans that are of some masterworks, right? So David would be a good example. Michelangelo's David, you can't find a good scan. You can find this quote-unquote scan on the same website, but it clearly was worked on afterwards. But anyway, this is, for us, this is actually a benefit in this case, in this instance, because what I would recommend you try doing is to, like I said, improve this sculpture. This is not about sculpting, really. If you're thinking that what classical sculpture has anything to do with hair creation in 3D, this exercise really is not about sculpting. It will definitely make you a better sculptor if you pay attention, if you really are serious about this exercise, right? You primarily, first of all, you would need to pay attention, right? You need to observe, and then need to be able to copy what you observe. So it will teach you sculpting, but it will teach you to kind of recognize the construction of the hair. It will teach you to recognize the dynamics of the hair. It will teach you to recognize the difference between, let's say, the top, right, and the bottom and the middle part. So here it's also a good example of what I was trying to show, where the surface in here is somewhat flat. We can see, even though we can see the strands, we can see the separation, right, but it's still somewhat flat, whereas I cannot stop laughing because it is such a, it's not about bad job, god damn it, it's just because you can't do that, right? You can't give people a terrible thing and call it a scan. This is not what Bernini did, right? Bernini did masterpiece. This is a pile of whatever. Calm down. So anyway, what I was trying to say, here we can see that there are separations of strands, right? And this is what I'm trying to actually kind of teach you inside of this class, is that if you don't analyze, if you don't pay attention, you would be naturally maybe inclined to do this kind of thing, right? The exact same thing that this artist did. Whereas if you do analyze, if you do pay attention, you will see that the surface is very different. And this not example, but the original sculpture is way more beautiful than this one, right? Because this creates noise. This creates this sameness that is everywhere, right? This hair is the same everywhere, more or less, right? And there is no way to, it's just not interesting, right? I don't know how to put it in words. You feel something, let's put it this way. You just look at this and you feel wow, you look at this and you feel okay, right? And that's going to be the crucial thing, right? The feeling that your work produces. So the exercise is very simple. I would encourage you to quote unquote improve the sculpture and use whatever tools you have, right? Use whatever tools you find yourself comfortable working with. But this is what I would do. I would take my first of all, I probably would remeshed the whole thing, right, to make it a little bit cleaner. Maybe this is fine. Let's just give me a try. No, this was decimated, so I would just use Dynamesh, or I would use ZRemesh and then reproject everything and use kind of cleanish topology, right? But this is what I would do. I would come with my brushes and I would go over the surface that we see here, and like I said, pay attention, right? Pay attention to the reference. Be careful with the following of the shapes in here, but also be very careful with the observing of the reference, because as I said, this was done afterwards by somebody who is not very good when it comes to artistic abilities, right? At least back then, at least back when the sculpture was taking, this 3D scan was taken. Maybe the artist now is tremendously skillful. I don't know, I don't really care. But in this example, this is the danger, right? The shapes are here, but they might not be flowing in the way that Bernini made them, which is way better, right? So pay attention to that and follow those shapes, right? Teach yourself this way through your hand. Teach your mind to be able to memorize those patterns, being able to reconstruct those patterns. The patterns that I'm talking about is the patterns that I was explaining in that I'm using in my work, right? So things maybe flowing this way, right? Maybe one of them is going somewhere inside, right? So those kind of patterns, the dynamics, the interest that is inside of the hair, as well as this example is good because it's a long hair, but you know, there's beard, so this is also kind of short-ish hair at the same time. But the most kind of, to me at least, the most useful thing, probably not useful, but the most interesting thing, the most kind of challenging thing is going to be those curls, right? This is going to be a challenge, so I would recommend you take that challenge and try your best, right? You have the reference, so your only excuse is just you giving up, right? If you're going to take up this challenge, but I would encourage you to make it to push it as far as you can. This is going to be very valuable. Just trust me on this one, right? It comes from my experience, but it also just makes perfect sense when you analyze works by somebody who will just master. And there's no argument behind this, right? Bernini was a master, period. That's it. There's no arguments after this. So when you analyze it, and when you have the ability to kind of reconstruct it in some way, right, you will learn so much, not just for your sculpting, but for if you're using, let's say, those curve brushes or insert brushes, or if you're modeling the hair, if you're using some tubes that you model inside of a 3D application, if you're using splines, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that you're using to create hair, this exercise will help you a lot, right? Because it's not just studying, right? It's not just observing, which can be daunting, which can be boring, because you just need to sit here and look. Maybe your tool of choice is actually painting, right, or drawing. Maybe you prefer to draw. This would be another good exercise. But when you are working in 3D and you do have a 3D object in front of you, and your task is to kind of copy the masterpiece, this is, to me at least, this is much more kind of useful, much more effective way of learning.